Once every orifice is properly cleaned and everything is shiny and new, the first part we should put back in is the jet needle. The jet needle has a band in the middle, and it has a convex end, and it's got an end with a little counter bore. The counter bore goes up and protrudes into the venturi. So you drop it into the hole, give it a little shake, and it will pop down and you'll be able to see it protruding into the venturi. Then you take the jet holder, put it in the top, screw it down, take your 8mm box wrench and give it a little snug like that. Doesn't take a lot of torque. Next goes the main jet. Get that started. And then just a little tweak with your screwdriver to make sure it's seated. Then we drop the pilot jet down its little hole and screw it in. Wait for it to bottom and then just give it a little snug. Now we can put the float bowls back. Excuse me, the float assembly back. We get our float assembly and our little inlet valve and assemble those together so they look like that. And then just move it down, drop it into place. Then we get the pin I know there's a hole back there someplace, and get everything lined up, and the pin should just sort of slide back into place if we get everything lined up correctly. There. And you want to make sure that it's flush on both sides by pinching it. After you've installed the floats into the carburetor, the next thing to do is to check the float height, and the proper procedure for that is to get the carburetor body at an angle such that the tang that sits on the inlet valve needle just touches the little pin that comes out, but it doesn't depress anything. So the needle needs to be completely seated and the tang needs to be just resting on top of the pin. And then the proper float height is 17.5 millimeters plus or minus 2 millimeters, or for us English speakers it should be about 700 thousandths from this surface to the top of the bowl. So from this edge to the top of the bowl here should be 700 thousandths, or 17.5 millimeters plus or minus 2. Before we can put the bowl back on, we've got to put its gasket back in, and it just needs to be gently worked into place like that. Work it into the groove, press it down, and then we can reassemble the bowl. This needs to get past this adjusting screw, and then there are little bosses around the two front legs, and they need to go into these recessed holes. You want to make sure that they're into those holes, and look and make sure that the cover is flush and not cocked like that. So with that done, all you need to do is put the little screws back in. And what we're going to do next is put the idle mixture screw back in place, and that's a little bit of a delicate operation because remember we have that little tiny washer and we've got that little tiny packing, and we want to make sure that those stay on the end of the needle as we insert it and don't fall off and get jammed in the bottom. These screws on the bottom just require a little bit of a twist, not a lot of torque. You've got that little O-ring gasket in the bowl, and we just want to make sure that that is seated flush. And once again, check to make sure that your parting lines are all properly flush and everything, and nothing's cockeyed. So now we will take the spring and we will take the adjusting screw and put them together like that. And then we need to have the little washer go right over and sit on top of the spring like that. And then the little packing, which is like a flat rubbery washer, goes over, and it's a little bit of a snug fit, fortunately. So we get that onto the shank of the idle mixture screw, and it should look like that. Then you can hold this horizontally, just for safety's sake, and slide it in and turn it. And then seat it down. And there will be several turns before the spring engages. At this point, you will want to run it all the way in and gently seat the needle. You remember how tiny that tip was, so you don't want to crank down on this hard. You just want to turn it until it seats against the bottom. There it goes. And then turn it out either to 1 3/4 turns to 2 1/4 turns, or back out to the original setting that you wrote down. The bottom part of the carburetor is now assembled.